welcome back to Sorry for Trauma Dumping. I'm your host, Alex. Hello. And today I am joined with a special guest. Her name is Rachel. Rachel, do you want to share a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. Like hobbies or
Or you can just say, like, where you're from or whatever.
I am from Illinois.
Awesome.
Yes. I'm a Libra.
Awesome.
Lactose intolerant. I'm not really sure.
No, you're good. Well, today Rachel's going to come on and share some of her stories, and we're just going to have a nice conversation about generational trauma. So, Rachel, go ahead and take it away.
Sure. I'm not really sure where to start. But I was kind of thinking earlier today how, because I was having a conversation with my mom and I brought up like generational trauma and she had like no idea what that was.
Okay.
And it kind of makes me think of like how different our generations are and how the way articulation.
Okay.
ADHD's like words. How like when you're in like a conversation with someone, sometimes people get triggered, but it's like not on purpose. I feel like it's caused from like generational trauma, and then I feel like that can like impact conversations and like how people like talk to each other and just in general like the relationships you can have with people.
Yes.
And my mom and I had like a really big fight. We had a big fight last year, and I told her, I was like, I don't want to be like angry with you. I want to be able to have like actual conversations. And I feel like we're just very different in perspective and very different in the generational trauma we've had. And she's told me that just like she doesn't understand still what generational trauma is.
Do you kind of want to give like a quick like blurb of what you're meaning by generational trauma, or like even like what the differences with you and your mom are and why you believe it's generational trauma?
Sure. From my understanding, generational trauma is like the pain, like the negative pain that we gain from our parents that they unknowingly give us.
Yes.
And like it's their grandparents. Well, yeah, I guess like their grandparents give it to their parents and their parents give it to them and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then it can be given to our children. And
yeah. Is there anything particular that like between you and your mom that like you can find that it is their trauma that's like kind of going on to you and you're trying to like, because I know for me, I guess me personally, when I think of generational trauma, I think of like parenting for like and like parenting techniques. I know like my parents, they've always talked about like they get whoopings, getting smacked in the face, getting the belt, you know, those forms of punishments. My mom dropped those down to like me and my siblings, and it might not have been severe. I was never hit with a belt, but I would always get spankings, stuff like that. Sometimes occasional whoop in the mouth, you know. And then for me, when I first started parenting, I didn't even know about gentle parenting, so I still took those on myself. And it wasn't until I was much older, because I also had a child very young, and I was able to learn different parenting techniques. And I was like, because I would always feel bad. I was like, you know, like my temper would set off, and like, you know, my first instinct was always like, you better knock it off or you're going to get a whooping. You know, with my youngest, I quickly changed things around. But then from there too, I've also like made sure I apologized to my eldest. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like I did this, like, you know, I know more now than I used to. And, you know, I do apologize for being very, very quick to spank and stuff like that instead of talking to you like a person. And then even like with apologizing, I feel like for the longest time, I honestly don't remember a time that my mom ever apologized for something that she did. And she
Mhm.
doesn't even, I don't think that she has ever been apologized to anything that her parents did to her. So
Um,
I'm very quick now to apologize to my children. If I know I set them off and
mhm.
it was something like I was in a bad mood, I'd be like, hey, I'm so sorry I acted that way. I
Mhm.
apologize. What can I do to, make this better? Like, I'm sorry, like, I invalidated your feelings or something. I'm very, very quick to apologize now. And I know that that was personally something really hard for me for a long time because I didn't have
Mhm.
those examples. I didn't have someone to learn from. So
Mhm.
my thing is, I guess if I'm taking away some of those generational traumas that I had and not putting them on my children, hopefully then that means that my children will do better. And if there is still something negative that's coming out of it, that it just kind of moves on over time to erase that trauma, I guess.
Mhm.
Do you kind of feel the same like with your parent?
Yeah, because I remember when I was like really little, I would like go to my parents about something that was hurtful that they did to me,
Mhm.
and or like something that happened at school or something I was just feeling because like developing anxiety, and
Yeah,
I didn't know I had like ADHD when I was little, and
same.
I yeah, and it's like I heard it's like in women it like it's misdiagnosed and all that good
Yeah,
stuff. And
yeah,
I would like go to them and be like, "Oh, I'm upset about this. I'm upset about this." But it was like it was almost like my problem was diminished or it was not seen as important. So as I grew up, I started to like keep everything to myself because something made me feel like if I went to someone about an issue that I would either be invalidated or I wouldn't get like the conversation that I was looking for or the
right.
validation. And I've noticed that like in my relationships, like people with my family or like in my family and just kind of like even my friends sometimes like I feel like I've really had to try and break out of that box that I've kind of put myself in because of that generational trauma, and
Yep.
sometimes I still really deal with that as like a problem. And then I remember even at work I never asked for help, and my manager was like, well, why didn't you ask for help or why didn't you do this? And I was like, I don't know, I'm just so used to doing things by myself.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of imprinted in my brain to do that.
No, I get that because I know fighting for yourself, I feel like is even harder, especially. So again, me, I really hate bringing up me since I've talked about it so much, but for me, like I know I felt for the longest time because one, I have older sister syndrome, so like I felt like I had to be like a second parent to my
Oh yeah.
siblings.
Uh-huh.
So I was already so used to like taking on so much, like making
Mhm.
sure I'm doing so many things or being like the family secret keeper and like, oh, mom's dealing with this. I got to make sure she's happy. Like, I don't want to set her off by something. Um, I'm just not going to ask for help and then I'll just be by
Mhm.
myself. But then I was also in special ed. So for me, the one thing they did teach you is like you need to advocate for yourself. You need to advocate for yourself. If you need help, you need to
Mhm.
speak up. So that is like I
Mhm.
guess one of my higher or what's the better qualities, I guess, is because I know I'm like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Like at work, I'm very
Mhm.
much like, I have a question. I need
Yeah.
help right now. I need all of your attention. Or like
Mhm.
I'll get an email because my problem is with comprehension. Like
Mhm.
verbal communication, not a problem.
Mhm.
But like if someone sends me an email,
Yep.
I have such a problem. And so sometimes I'll go to my manager and be like, hey, you got a quick minute? And she'll be like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, hey, so in this email, you want me to do A, B, and C,
Mhm.
correct? And she'll be like, yes or no. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
can you explain to me in Alex terms? Because I don't get it. And she absolutely loves that. She's like, yeah, that's not a problem. Like, I would rather you come to me and be like, I don't get this. Ask
Mhm.
me, but it took me a long time to get to that point, and it even took time advocating for myself at work saying, hey, I had an IEP as a kid,
Mhm.
like I have reading comprehension, I want to do the best I can, so I will ask questions, excuse me, but like and other things of life, I'm just like, I'll know who to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't taught this, and I'm no contact with my mom.
Oh.
My dad died,
Oh
so
no, girl, same.
so, so it's not like, who can I go to?
Yeah.
No, yeah, Dead Dad Club.
Oh
I actually have a whole episode on that too, so I'll tag it if anyone wants to know about my daddy issues. Um,
no. Oh no.
but yeah, no, I feel like advocating for oneself has always been a
Mm-hmm.
struggle, and I guess for people who weren't in special ed, I think that was like one thing they really pushed on us. But I know some of my other friends are like, I don't ask for help, and I was like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I don't know, and I was like, ask for help, ask for help, and they're like, it's too hard. I was like, no, I get it, it
Mm-hmm.
is really hard, but once you get to it, be like, I'm helpless, just help me, I need an adult. Alex, you're 32 years old. I don't feel like an adult.
I was like, I'm still a child in here.
Who let me have children's, have a house, and pay bills? Who allowed that?
And I was like, can I just play in the sandbox, please?
Yeah, can I just like go back to like not having any responsibilities? You know,
Mm-hmm.
whenever that happened. I mean, I guess at 15 of age, I had no responsibilities, and after that, I got pregnant and had a baby. So I had responsibilities almost my entire life. Oh boy, yeah. Anyway, generational trauma.
I got my list.
You got your list?
I got my list.
Okay. So what is another thing that I guess you see about other people with generational trauma, and the thing that is different from like our generation changing it?
I feel like just like the how like mental health is kind of taboo.
Yeah.
In the older generation, and I feel like that's a very big generational thing.
Yes.
And
no, I get it. I definitely feel mental health is a huge thing too.
yes.
I have gone to therapy myself,
Same.
not including this. I feel like this is another brand of therapy for myself.
Yes, I like
But I know, like, going to therapy, and like I talked to some family members, are like, they need to go to therapy really, really bad, but it's like they're the older generation, so they don't believe in it, or like they don't see, you know, it's still even like a talking point I find in like some comedies, that they don't take like therapy and stuff like seriously. Like they're like, oh, you're going to therapy, are you crazy? No, I'm not crazy, I just have gone through shit, I need to like, you know, need to like crack open my head and like, let's pull these things out, you know, let's talk about it.
Yeah, like ooh, I just thought of one. Like there's like this idea that has like been pushed on me for the last couple years by my parents, and it's like my watch keeps going off. It's like abnormal heartbeat. I'm okay, but
mine's going off too.
Oh, girl.
Anxiety.
Everything's fine. I'm not talking about hard stuff, but so like it's like when they were younger and they were sick or they couldn't go to school or work or whatever, they were like told they had to go anyway. So my mom has like grown up with that, and I've noticed like when I had COVID, she didn't want to believe that I was like sick. And she's like, oh, well, you need to make money. You need to go to work. And I was like, that's the baby boomer talking. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's like, that's the baby boomer talking.
So I take it your parents are baby boomers?
Yeah, like they were like in the last year of like the baby boomer era, like 63, 64-ish.
Okay. My parents were young parents. They were Gen Xers. So it's kind of like Gen Xers just don't give a shit. Like they really could give like to, I mean, I don't want to put all Gen, I guess like, that's with everything. No one wants to put like everything in a box, but like some Gen Xers just, I have had conversations with my stepdad. He's like, honestly, I could give two shits. All I care about is myself. And I was like, red flag.
Yeah, like my stepdad, it's like because I like OCD too, and I would like it was like if it doesn't happen for him, he doesn't believe it exists.
Yeah.
And then it'd be like another thing, like going hard to like go to them and tell them about my OCD because they don't really get it. And I'm like, I don't know how to articulate not wanting to touch the toilet handle because it's sturdy. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, someone peed and touched that and didn't wash their hands. And now they're touching the door handles and they're touching this. And I was like, I don't want to touch that because someone touched it.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
Yes.
It's kind of like, not only do you have to, like, you really have to advocate for yourself, especially if it's something that affects you personally. And people are like, I just don't understand. Why is this a big deal? It's like, because it is a big deal to me.
Yes. And I think growing up being invalidated so much, and I know it's not like their fault. I know it's like I always say it's your generational trauma talking is like how I always like to put it because I know it's like not their fault for thinking like that. But it still can like affect us even though they don't think like it's how their words do affect us. And
Right. Well, even like just generational too, like I guess and this is another thing I don't understand about like Gen Xers and baby boomers. Baby boomers were part of like the hippie era.
Yeah, I think it'd be like, more laid back and cool.
But apparently they're not. It doesn't make any sense. And like my parents, they're Gen Xers, so like obviously, like you remember, if you've seen anything about the 90s, like everything was grunge and like you know, like my parents have like tattoos and like you know they're a little bit more edgier, but then there's some stuff that they're like way like old school about. I was like, this makes no sense to me. And like I knew for the longest time like I wasn't able to get piercings and stuff. I was like, but you have tattoos. Like, yes, but you're so young. I was like, why does it matter?
Yeah, I was like, I want to dye my hair pink, and they would be like, that's not a natural color, but it's cool.
Yeah, there's so many people like that. Like my mom, luckily my mom is always very much like, you can express yourself however, just you cannot do it permanently until you're 18. So, but like hair, she was a cosmetologist. So like she was always like, yeah, you could do whatever you want to your hair. I don't care. But like other things, I was just like, or like I would have friends who like couldn't wear certain clothes or like couldn't see certain movies and stuff like that. I'm just kind of like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But yeah, I guess self-expression. Or even just coming to terms with a lot of things like LGBTQ stuff too. That is a huge thing. I feel like I'm going to refer back to my daddy issues episode. The guy who I thought was my dad who ended up not being my dad, he was gay. And yeah, girl, you're just
we have a lot more in common. Like my dad, who I thought was my dad, was my adoptive dad, and my biological dad was an alcoholic. So I never met the dude.
Oh my god, my dad was an alcoholic. That's how he died. Oh my god, really? That's too funny.
Yeah, he got like a heart attack and like got a blood clot, and I think it was probably caused from drinking too much.
My dad was due to liver stuff.
Oh
no! Yep. So my dad, or the guy who I thought was my dad, he was gay, and that gave my mom a lot of personal trauma. So for the longest time, like she was very like anti-gay. It wasn't until she, went to cosmetology school and was like friends with people who are gay, and it really opened her eyes to a lot of things. But then later on, it wasn't until later, like, okay, so like when things with people who are transgendered was really big in the media, my mom was just terrible, and she's like, I just don't understand. I was like, how can you not understand this? You understand where gay people are coming from. How can you not understand people who are transgendered? That does not make sense to me. Like, there are two sides of the same coin. The only thing that's different is instead of like loving who they're they want to love, they're trying to love themselves.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly, and she just for the longest time like she didn't get it. I remember having conversations with my younger sibling, and she would have more like she would like try to beat in my mom's head, and she was like, no, like how do you not get this? And I still don't know where my mom lies on that. Neither my stepdad, I don't think I mean, I heard my mom has gotten better, but I've been no contact with my mom for like 4 years now, so I don't know where she stands on stuff. I know my stepdad, he's fallen down the wrong rabbit hole on TikTok.
Oh no.
Very Fox News. And
oh no.
Like, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But no, I feel like that and like how people express themselves. I know with the older generation, they're like, why do they have to dress that way? Why do they have to do that? Why, you know? And I feel like a lot of it too, like they're trying to revert to different things and like girls have to be girls and dress like girls. Boys have to be boys and dress like boys. Or some people don't want to do either. So why does it matter?
Yeah. Like I've had similar conversations with my parents, and just like some of the comments they make, I'm like, did you really just say that? Okay, yeah. I'm gonna act like I didn't hear you, or I'll politely be like, that's not appropriate, or but they're human beings too. And they're like, I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm like, well, you don't have to get it or understand. That's just how they are now.
Mm-hmm. Or like growing up, like my stepdad was very much like, do not talk back to me. Mm-hmm. So like I remember having conversations, and I would tell him that he was wrong about something, and he's like, oh, well, if you know everything, why don't you go live off on your own? I was like, I am merely a child. Like, why do you have to get so defensive because someone told you what you're doing is incorrect?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. And like, I distinctly have a memory. We were going somewhere, and my mom was driving, but my stepdad was in the passenger seat, and he had like a 6-pack of beer, and he was drinking it up front. I was like, oh no. Hey, like he wasn't driving, but I was like, hey, I don't think you're supposed to have beer in the front seat. He's like, no, it's fine. I'm not driving. I was like, right, but that's still open container. You can still get it. Like, the driver is still accessible to it. And if my mom gets pulled over, which my mom didn't have a license at the time, if my mom would get pulled over, that would just make things even harder for her. And I remember him was like, oh, well, you can just shut up or shut your fucking mouth and like mind your own business. And I was like, okay, I was just trying to like alleviate an issue because what you're doing right now will cause a bigger issue.
Yeah, that's bad.
But, so then after that, I was like, well, there's no point of like ever telling him he's wrong. And like another thing he would do too that he learned from his own parents was we could never ask him like, hey, what does this mean? Because he immediately would be like, go to the dictionary, look it up, and write it down. And then he was like, and if you don't know one of those words that you just looked up, look up that next word. And if you don't know that, look up the next word. And it was the point where I was like, I'm not going to even ask you anything because I'm not going to sit here and like look up things. Like my brother did that once, and he sat for a whole afternoon because then he had to go and explain it to my stepdad.
Oh, wow.
He's like, all right, what'd you learn? I was very much like, you could have literally just told him right off the bat what that meant instead of like having him sit there and like write shit for 3 hours in a notebook. Like what he just blew his whole day away. He's what he was learning. Okay. He just asked you a question. You couldn't just answer it. Yeah.
I don't know.
Generational trauma, man.
Yes. It's making me think of like conversations my stepdad and I had, and him and I had when I was like growing up. And it was just like sometimes I just felt so invalidated with stuff. And I didn't really know how to like process it because I was so young. But like there was a lot of times where he would just kind of snap at me and yell at me for stuff that I didn't even realize was a problem.
Yeah. I have to stop myself because my husband and I are both very loud people. And that's just how we communicate. We're both Capricorn moon. So when we feel very strongly about something, are you a Capricorn moon? No shit.
Yes!
Shit.
And I'm a Scorpio rising, so you know, more to add to that.
Well, my husband is a Libra sun.
Dude, I'm a Libra sun.
And then he's a Capricorn moon
Love that.
and a Cancer rising.
Oh.
And I am a Pisces sun,
Oh.
a Capricorn moon, and a Pisces rising.
Wow.
So I'm very emotional, but
Uh-huh.
strong-headed on certain things, but I get my feelings hurt very easily.
Oh no.
So that, like with mine, with my stepdad, he would say something to me and I'd start crying because I cry so. It's a Pisces thing, man. I cry. I can cry and like the littlest things. And like he would be like, oh, Alex is crying again. She's just so emotional. So like I feel like when I would cry, things I would say would be like even more invalidated because it's like you're just being a big crybaby about it. And I was like, it's not. You literally hurt my feelings. And there he'd be like, oh, just suck it up. Not everyone's gonna care about your feelings. You just have to get used to it. And I was like,
Oh, that's mean.
no, yeah, no, no, yeah. But then like I was also very controlling too. That's the Capricorn. I know it is. In the way I would do things and in the way, like if someone's like, no, you were wrong, I would take that very literally. Be like, what do you mean I'm wrong? No, I'm not. Not wrong. And then yeah, it's a whole thing. But yes, I remember so many times, and it wasn't even like I shit on my stepdad a lot, but that's because I had the most interaction with him. But it wasn't just him. Grandparents were that way. My own mom was that way sometimes too. Like I. Do you ever get that feeling like when you're upset? Do you get like a frog in your throat, like you can't speak?
Yeah.
Like it almost like hurts.
It's
like I almost shut down.
Yeah, and then I just kind of like I either internalize everything or I like explode.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to like teach myself to like have conversations with people when I'm upset, but because of like that generational trauma, feeling like I was walking on eggshells when I was little, I always expected them to blow up back at me. So I'm like, how do I go about this conversation? What do I say? Like what? And I know this I'm very like tone oriented. I feel like if my tone's a certain way, I'm offending somebody, but I feel like that's because if I spoke a certain way to my parents, like I was going to get the same energy back.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know how to like conversate sometimes, and that scares me.
Well, and my mom, I guess both my mom has resting bitch face. My stepdad has resting dick face. So like I could never tell what kind of mood they're in. And I guess I have the same thing. Mine's different. My plain face, I look like I'm upset. My daughter catches me, she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yeah. She's like, you look like you're gonna cry. It was like, that's just like my natural face. So like every time she comes to me, she's like, are you okay, Mom? And I was like, I'm fine. And she's like, your face doesn't say that. I was like, it's just my face. I just look upset all the time. So you either look mad or you look sad. Yeah. But with me, even when I'm mad, I immediately I cry. Like I can be so mad, or like even at work, my boss can't tell me I do anything wrong. Anytime they do anything, I'm like, okay, I will fix that. And they're like, are you okay? I was like, nope, I just need a minute. I just need a minute. I know, it's fine, but my mind right now is like, no, you gotta cry. You gotta cry right now. It's just how it is. But I feel like because of that, though, a lot of the things I said as a kid was very invalidating. Not because I was saying something and they're like, no, you're stupid. Like whatever you're saying doesn't make sense. It also because I was crying. I was too emotional, and I feel like a lot of older generations don't like emotions. If you're too passionate about it, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, I was just thinking like if I would like bring up something that upset me, the immediate reaction would be like, oh, what's wrong now? Or like, what do you have to be upset about? And I'm like, well, that's invalidating. Thanks. I won't talk about it then. Okay.
Yeah. And then you shut down and then like, okay, who can you talk to? And then you feel like you can't talk to anyone. Yeah. Same.
Yep.
And then when you do find people to talk about, then they're like, I'm I've always been passionate enough to make friends very easily. Like, I think
Mhm.
that's one of my better things in life. I can make friends really, really easily.
Mhm.
But if you do something to really piss me off, or like if you intentionally hurt me, you're dead to me. I think that's just like a Pisces mentality. Like, I either love you to pieces, and don't be wrong, I will show
Mhm.
all my love and affection towards you.
Mhm.
Um, like my friends, like I love them and I show them that I love them. But if they do something to like completely invalidate me,
Mhm.
or like make me just wrong me too many times, I am very much like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, or yeah, that kind of whole thing.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
mhm.
3 strikes, you're out, and I'm done. Like, if you're not going to show me the kind of kindness I'm showing you, I'm done, kind of thing. But
Mhm.
that took a long time for me to figure out. I've always been a human doormat as well. And it wasn't until the last couple of years where I'm like, I'm done. I'm not going to be a human
Mhm.
doormat for you anymore. I'm going to stand up for myself. And I know a lot of people don't like that.
Mhm.
They're like, I know, even like going no contact with my parents, that I feel it's almost a generational thing. Like, obviously there has
Mhm.
been people over time who no longer speak to their parents, but
Yeah.
like coming out and telling someone, I'm not going to have contact with you until you get help or you apologize, I feel like that is a newer thing,
Mhm.
where it's not just like the family is writing off one person, like a parent's like writing off their child, like, oh, you're gay, I no longer want anything to do with you. It's the child saying, you are homophobic, I no longer want anything to do with you. I feel it's like it's taking back their power.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's how things are differently generational as well.
Yeah.
I feel like going no contact has been a really, really big thing these last couple of years for people. And I guess even if it has been going around, I guess more people are just talking about it now.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know, I really got reminded of this, but like I wouldn't say narcissistic, but I feel like it's also like because I want no contact with my brother because of his narcissism, but he blames everything on everybody else. And I'm like, I feel guilty talking about them in a negative way. I hope they don't see it and like get hurt or something, but
No,
I
I
don't
get
know if that's a trigger or
no.
what.
I feel like though people are. Would you say that you're still very close with your parents?
I would
Like,
say, yeah. I mean, we've had our talks, and I've expressed like how certain things in the past have hurt me, and they've acknowledged them and have tried to change. But all
mhm.
this is like really in the past, like all the negative generational trauma stuff. And I know sometimes my mom still deals with those issues, and but then I'm starting to get better at like being like, okay, you did this and you hurt me, let's talk about it, and then
Yeah,
we try and conversate about it. And
I feel like there's still so many people though. Like, I'm happy that you have that relationship, because like I know there's
thank
so many
you.
people who like their parents don't parents don't want to admit that they're wrong and don't want to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's when people get really hurt. So like with my case, like, um I need an apology, and
Yeah.
I have not received that at all.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I feel
Mhm.
like I am so happy when I hear that, like with you with your parents, like, they might not get it, but at least they're trying, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that's nice, and I hope that if they do see this, that you see, like, you're not just shitting, you're just sharing your own views, or like your own experiences. I don't think anyone should ever criticize someone for like sharing their own experiences, because yes, something might have happened which put them in a bad light, but that
Mhm.
doesn't define them.
Yeah. I feel like
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
so
Hmm.
like I know I shit on my mom a lot, but I've also explained that I still very much love my mom, and I wish her the most, and like I want her to get better, and I want to build a relationship with her, but there's certain things that she has to do in order to do that. And I kind of feel like if she's upset because I'm sharing my own truth and it makes her look like an asshole, maybe in that time she was an asshole, but that doesn't mean she's always an asshole. It
Yeah.
just means that in this time, in this place, she did something that really negatively did something to me. Or like
Mhm.
with you, when you just shared your story with your mom, how said that was something that she did that impacted your life in a way that you're like, that hurt you, that
Yeah.
that made an impact. That doesn't mean that your mom's a bad person. That was just something that stuck in your mind, that was like, that was a shitty thing to do,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean you're a shitty person. But you should also still be allowed to share, like, hey, this has happened to me, like, and other people are like, oh, same with me, or same with me.
Mhm.
It's extremely common, and I feel like having these conversations, knowing like this shitty stuff happens, it doesn't mean that person is a shitty person,
Absolutely.
as
Mhm.
long as they're growing and learning from it.
Yeah.
Other things I was going to share, just like some other examples of generational trauma. Racism is considered a generational trauma. I know in things today, it's still
Mhm.
really, I feel like even things with like the Confederate flag and stuff in the South,
Yeah.
that in self, one is misinformation, in just generational trauma in that, and the way it all started too. I feel like
Mhm.
racism is a huge hot topic, a lot of it for older generations, and it's taught to us, and it's either we educate ourselves more to learn and grow from it, and our own racial biases. I believe everyone has a racial bias, and they just have, it's something you have to overcome yourself.
Yeah.
Racist biases, it
Mhm.
it's inherently human. Everyone has racist biases. It's up to us now to learn and grow from that,
Mhm.
and not use slurs, not
Mhm.
not because someone has a darker melanin than someone else, have just a guess of how they're going to be. You can't put everyone in a box saying like all Mexicans
Mhm.
are lazy, or like, things of that nature. Like those are just common things that people throw out, and I'm just like,
Mhm.
you can't think that way. You might have your own personal bias, but it's up to us to learn and grow from that.
Absolutely. I feel like it like really breaks my heart that like people are just choosing to stay small-minded and aren't
Mhm.
trying to educate themselves on certain things like the Native Americans or like Black history or like what the Asian folk went through like with the pandemic and people were super xenophobic. Like I feel
Yeah.
like it's like where is your mindset when it comes to those like comments or
Well,
perspectives? Like,
even like my stepdad, I remember having another argument with him.
mm-hmm.
He is Asian.
Mm-hmm.
He is half Japanese, half German.
Oh wow,
Yeah. His
that's an
parents,
interesting combo.
it is a very interesting combo. His mom was Asian, and his dad was German.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so he was like this big tall man, and she was this little itty bitty woman. It's so
Ah.
funny. They were the sweetest, but he would make comments. I was like, oh, how are you making comments like that? I was like, do
Mhm.
you not remember in history? I remember seeing things in history books where people would have outside of buildings, no Japs here.
Yep.
Move on, and you're going to treat another group of people that way yourself. I think he was saying something like anti-Mexican or something like that. I was like, why are you even making comments like that? Your own people
Mm-hmm.
weren't even, like, people didn't want you in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, did you not, hello, do you have blinders on?
That's great. Like, I think we're all human, and that's how I like to look at it. Like, we're
Yes.
all on one planet,
Yes.
and I feel like religion separates us, politics separate us, and there's like so much put on skin color based off of like history that
Mm-hmm.
it happened and it's horrible. And it's like, I feel like some people are still trying not to learn about the history and grow from that and move on and like be respectful towards
Yeah.
people who have gone through that, like older folks. And it's like, why,
Right.
why?
Another example for inherent. Oh wait, for generational trauma is substance use.
Oh, interesting.
See, I guess that's different for me at least. My family's always been very 420 friendly,
I love
so
that.
like, that was never the case really for me. I guess I was very anti 420 for a
Mm-hmm.
long time because I saw the effects. Because I guess my family was doing other things than
Ooh.
just that.
Oh.
So that stuck with me for a long time as a kid. So I was like, no, like all drugs are bad. And now I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, I love getting high on the weekends. Like, that's a nice thing because it's such a stress reliever for me. But for the longest time, like,
Mm-hmm.
if it was ever offered, I was like, no, drugs are bad.
God. Yeah, I was like that with like alcohol because of my biological father, and
Hmm.
like I started to go down this path that I never wanted to go down my entire life, and I would always reject alcohol. I was like, that stuff's gross, bad. But then I moved to California a couple years ago, and I kind of got into the scene of like the drinking stuff, and I was like, I'm stressed. Take a drink. I'm depressed. Take a drink. I'm not on the weekend. I'm at the bar. Take a drink.
Yeah.
And then it started to get bad, and I was like, I bought a bottle of alcohol for the apartment that I lived at, and it started to get worse and worse, and I got like super sick last year, and I almost lost my kidney. I
Oh
think it's
no.
yeah, I had got like a really bad infection, and I think I was like super dehydrated, and my immune system wasn't the best because of the infection, and then it was like everything put together, and now like if I don't drink enough water and I get dehydrated, like my right kidney will like scream at me. It's like, where's my aqua? Give it to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I was like, ew, that's all because of that generational trauma. Cause
Well,
like,
I think with that too, my stepdad's always been a big drinker, but he's
mm-hmm.
never like gotten sick. I did a whole episode on that. I'll put that up there too. But so like alcohol is so normalized, I
Mm-hmm.
guess. Like if you go to it, so for, I guess for my work, it's so normalized. Like we have work events where like alcohol is free.
Oh wow.
Like we just like sporting events, there's always
Mm-hmm.
alcohol. There's beer advertisements everywhere. Like if you do anything like, oh, you plan on people drink or like driving or like not
Mm-hmm.
driving but drinking. My we grew up in a college town, so very
Oh
much
wow.
on the weekends, like everyone's drinking. Like that was never not a thing. I started drinking in high
Mm-hmm.
school myself, secretly, and going to parties because that's what you
Oh.
do as a kid. Like it's small town, middle of bumfuck nowhere, Iowa. What else are you gonna do? Like you're just gonna go to parties and drink in the fucking
Uh-huh.
cornfield.
Yep.
So, or like or what we would do is we'd fill our cans of pop with vodka and
Oh
walk
no.
around because no one would know. We're
Uh-huh.
drinking Sprite. Like, what do you mean? I'm just walking down this gravel road, just hanging out with my friends, having
Oh
some
no.
pop. Like, no one would know anything. But drinking is so normalized, and like I feel like 420 stuff was very much like still taboo, even though like at my
Mhm.
house it wasn't taboo. Like my parents were getting high all the time, but it was still like such a negative thing for me. It wasn't until I actually started. I won't smoke. I only do gummies because I'm a
Mhm.
little bitch. Um, but on the weekends, that's what I do to relax and have a good time. But since I started that, I don't drink anymore. I don't want to drink.
Oh. Mhm.
Like I don't get hangovers.
Mhm.
I get the silly goofiness that I want and the outside of my box and the relaxation I need, the
Mhm.
socialness of it. Um, I don't want to drink anymore. Even
Mhm.
like I know I went to like Pride a couple years ago in Des Moines, and they have like the THC infused like waters and stuff. And I was drinking that, and it had like the same effect of like alcohol in the sense of like it opened me up, and I was like, okay, I'm like vibing, I'm having a really nice time, and I'm like able to get out of my anxiety induced. Oh my
Mhm.
god, there's a million people here kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, like this is fun. Like it felt like drinking, but not drinking. And I was able to relax and have a good time. And I didn't have a hangover. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to worry about feeling like shit the next day. My body didn't hurt the next day. Like it was such a positive thing for me. That's why I was like, I have no problem at all saying that that I get high on the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do I think there's a problem with it? No, because I do it in moderation. I'm not getting
Mm-hmm.
high every day and I have control about it.
Yeah.
I'm being safe about it.
Mm-hmm.
But like my own husband, he is an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
He has a problem, and he luckily has been sober. He's been sober for a while. I can't remember exactly how long, but he
Mm-hmm.
also switched over to edibles too. And that has also been a great thing for him because he's not waking over hungover. He's not, slumping around all day the next day. He's able to get up out of bed. He's not in pain. Like, I think there's positive and negative, and I feel like, at least in the state of Iowa, they
Mm-hmm.
really, generationally, I would say, they still are very anti-drug.
Yeah. I,
And
mm-hmm.
in other states, it's not as bad. I know Illinois, it's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, it's legal. Missouri, it's legal. So, like, now if I want to get edibles anyway, I have to go, like, out of state. Like, I can't get them in state anymore because
Oh no.
our governor completely outlawed them, like, 2 months ago.
Oh really? Wow.
Yeah. So that's been hard because I'm like, all right, well, better stock up because we can't get them for a while. Um, but I know, like, there's certain people, when they think of drugs, they think of, a negative light, or
Mm-hmm.
how I used to, and it wasn't until I actually experienced them and like had good reaction to it. It was because it was normalized that, it broke me out of that generational curse.
Yeah.
In the sense, I know there's some parents who are very still like, or just some people who are very like anti marijuana, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they're just like, they don't get it. And I was like, have you ever experienced it? I
Yeah,
get
my
that.
mom.
I feel like that it's a lot of people who like don't understand it, and again don't want to
Mm-hmm.
change. I was that way for a long time too, until I actually was like, wow, I guess I was just stupid for a long time. But I was taking some of the other drama and trauma that I had as a child, thinking that all drugs are bad, not realizing that, marijuana was just put on there for racism reasons.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
That I educated myself more about it, and I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
that makes more sense. But again, more generational trauma with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um Now that there's even stuff for like war too.
War. Wow.
Yeah. Why? Hold on a minute. Oh, even okay, war and like domestic violence. I know a big one for domestic violence. People who were like, I just I saw something on TikTok the other day where someone was like talking to like their mother-in-law, and it was like, well, your son like blew up on me. He acted like he was gonna hit me. Like,
Oh.
can you have a conversation with him, and like that, like this is unacceptable. And they're like, well, maybe you shouldn't say things to make him mad. Red
Ah.
flag. Right. But there are big things, like I know, like, or like family secrets, people who've been molested, people who have been, been
Mm-hmm.
in domestic violence relationships. All of that stuff is very hush hush. We don't talk about it. Everyone in the family knows, but we're going to sweep it under the rug. I feel like that is another form of generational trauma, in the sense of like, we're breaking out of those social norms. No, I'm going to let you know I was sexually abused. I'm going to let you know we were in like this relationship that I witnessed was a domestic violence. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not staying quiet about these things anymore, because it's not doing anyone any good about staying quiet. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of generational stuff, it's very much like, let's just keep the peace. It's okay. We know this happens, but we're just shh, keep it
Yeah.
quiet.
That
No.
just. Yeah. That just made me think of, because my ex boyfriend. It's like we were like in and out of a relationship for like 10 years, from like high school throughout adulthood, and we were both like in the state where we were like both unhealed, and we were probably should not have been in each other's lives that long at all. And I had finally started to like push him out of my life and let go, just so we could kind of have that separation. And he's like engaged now, and I think his fiance's pregnant. Like, good for him, good for you. Good for you. Move on with your life. But I remember this one conversation I had with my mom, and she knew everything that like he had done to me and how many issues we had. And she's like, oh yeah, like his mom said that you guys would look good together, you guys should date. And I was like, but you know how unhappy I was, like all the time I would like come home crying, like, you know, it was because of him. She's like, well, you're single, you should like date, you should like be with him. And then it makes me realize now that you mentioned that, because my mom, my biological dad, was also it would like physically abuse my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was like, luckily my ex didn't physically, it was more like an emotional thing. It was more of like a, he didn't treat me right kind of situation emotionally. And mm-hmm. he didn't want to like talk about his issues. There's very generational trauma with him too, I think, because his dad like would always make him feel like, you know, being a man, like you can't talk about your feelings and all this stuff. So when I would try and bring up my feelings and have conversations with him so we could like heal in the relationship, he didn't want to talk about that kind of stuff. And I think I've noticed that with like my guy friends, like sometimes it's hard for them to open up about their generational trauma and stuff that they've dealt with, because they were taught that talking about that means weakness. And I think that's another thing I've noticed. Like my stepdad like rarely talks about anything he deals with. He just kind of keeps it all to himself.
Yeah. I feel like that goes hand in hand with like mental health too. Mm-hmm. Like when we talk about mental health, it immediately you think of like someone is like crazy. Mm-hmm. I guess that's like the, like if you hear someone went to the psych ward, it's like, oh, they must be crazy. You know, oh, they went to the loony bin. No, that's not the case at all. Like they went there because they needed help, mm-hmm. like mentally. Like it's not because, you know, it's because their brain is sick. There is some kind of chemical imbalance that's like making them not well, and they're going to seek help. There's nothing wrong with going to seek help. And I feel like there's still such a stigma against that. Mm-hmm. And with generational stuff, and especially with men.
Yeah.
With men so much. Luckily, like my husband has always had a very supportive, like mother and father. Mm-hmm. And so like when he needed help, I remember he got help when he needed it when he was in high school. And he was able to go to the psych ward and stuff like that. But even that puts such a stigma on people. They're like, oh, mm-hmm. you went to the psych ward. Are you crazy? No, that's not the case. He was going there because he thought he was going to kill himself. Not like, you know, he was dealing with so much and he didn't. Men, like you had said, men are taught like, oh, we don't talk about our feelings. You know, hush. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a girly thing. Are you a girl? Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. Or like, even like, just the gender norm things. Again, another thing of generational trauma. People mm-hmm. are put in a box thinking like girls can only do this, guys can only do this, guys can't have feelings, guys have to hide their emotions. The mm-hmm. only emotions guys can show is anger.
Yep.
And it comes out as anger maybe because they don't know how to cry properly. Yeah. You know, men need a good cry sometimes too. You can't just keep it in because it's going to stew and it's going to get worse.
Mm-hmm. That's how it was for my ex too. It was like, I noticed he would kind of like it's the Capricorn. We're earth tones, you know. We like to feel grounded, but if we're not grounded, we explode. But it's like that's what I saw with him. It was like he didn't want to converse or like talk about anything. He would just rather, you know, yell and get mad and do drugs. And that's how that was. Yep.
I feel like when it comes to like mental health, guys do not get enough. Mm-hmm. I feel like in this country in general, I don't think people get enough because it's really covered by insurance anyway, and insurance is expensive. Or there's just not a lot of providers. I know in my area, there's very, very little providers, and sometimes the providers you get are very hit or miss. Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with, one, people aren't able to go because they don't have insurance, or two, they do have insurance, but the providers in their area are very limited.
Yeah.
So people struggle when they're even trying to find help.
Mhm.
And you can only take so much. It's kind of like you're your own ticking bomb in a sense. Like if you're not getting the help you need, you're gonna tick, 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 tick till you explode.
Yeah, I feel like I've had to teach myself to kind of be my own therapist. And
Same.
I don't know if that's a generational trauma thing too,
Yeah.
but like I kind of like how you said like if you get help you like feel like you're nuts or crazy. But I was in therapy for like 7 months this past year because I thought about taking my own life unfortunately and I was in a very bad place and I almost went to a mental hospital and I kept revolving that thing in my head. I was like, well, if I go, people are going to look at me different. And I was like, I don't want anyone to look at me different. So I'm just going to continue to deal with this stuff by myself.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And I feel like that needs to change in the system because it's like toxic,
Yes.
very toxic. And but it makes me happy like seeing all these new brands that are coming out with like, mental health awareness and
Mm-hmm.
what's that one on TikTok where it's like
I know they have like hims and hers now.
that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, so like Hims, I know they have like mental health stuff for just guys. They can
Uh-huh.
go there for like mental health stuff. They can go there for weight loss. They can go
Mhm.
there for DV. They can
Mhm.
go there like it's like mental or like health for men. So they make it masculine, but like at the same time though, they're getting the help they need. So I mean,
That's
if they need to
good.
market it for men, then maybe
Yeah.
it'll get more. Because then there's also hers. So
Mhm.
then you can get birth control, you can get mental health stuff, you
Oh,
can get
I have seen that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, sure, let's market it that way if that's going to help people. I still
Mhm.
feel that's also really toxic to
Yeah,
have
it
to
is very
separate
toxic.
men from
Yeah.
women because they both have mental health issues. But if it's
Mhm.
going to help people get what they need out of it, sure, market it
Mhm.
towards men.
Yep.
Slap a pink tax on the girls,
Yeah.
and be done with it. That's
Yep.
the whole set of issues. But I guess if people are getting the help they need, or like I know even now, um, video,
Mhm.
like therapy, text message therapy, that helps too, I guess. Um, I think if someone is really needing help, I really hope that they can find what they need and they don't keep it inside.
Yeah.
As another person who has attempted suicide themselves, I wish I had people looking out for me at that point. Glad nothing came of it, but
Mhm.
shit happens. Mental health is terrible, and if you have no one to rely on and you don't know where to help, again, I had the same thing. I could go to the psych, but I've heard such negative things about the psych ward
Mhm.
because of either underfunding or lack of, you know, doctors, which is a huge thing too.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I want to go to somewhere, lose out pay because I have to skip work to get
Mhm.
locked in a room and get doped up for 3 days for them to send me on my way and not actually get the help I need?
Yeah. I had this really bad experience once with this therapist, and I think it was for anxiety. No, it was for OCD.
Hmm.
I've been for OCD, anxiety, and depression, like PTSD.
Yeah.
I have a lot of therapists. Just realized that. But I went, and this lady was like I don't know, it was really weird. She would like ask me a question and she would like have this little notepad and she would like write down little notes while she was talking to me. And she would ask me a question and I would answer her and she'd go, okay, next question. Like she was
Like
like,
she was almost like judging you on your answer.
yeah, she was judging me and like analyzing me to see what was wrong with me. I was like, girl, I'm here for OCD. I just want help knowing why I have problems with germs. Like,
Yeah.
you're making me look like I'm a loony. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? I was like, okay.
Well, even like with that, like there has been stuff that comes out, like the negative turns of like even with people who are mentally health, like calling them crazy or like
Mm-hmm.
with women having hysteria. Like,
Yeah.
you know, hysteria wasn't a real thing, and if they did, like, it was like women just needed to have an orgasm. Like that's how they would cure it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she has hysteria. Like,
Wait, what?
you know, or like, I don't know. Even like with generational stuff, like a man would get mad at their wife and like lock them up in the psych ward because they'd be like, they're crazy. You know,
She's
and then
a witch. Like,
yeah, or like she's a witch and we're gonna burn her at the stake, and like, oh, that's a way that I can get this wife and I can get a new one, and like that's a whole other issue. That's all on like feminism and
yep.
but it's still steeped in sexism is still very steeped in generational trauma, so I still think is very valid to talk about.
I agree.
There's a lot of issues.
Yes. Very broad like spectrum with it, and I feel like it can be like pulled in many different directions.
Yeah. Okay, so I pulled up the actual definition of generational trauma. I got it from health.com. Generational trauma is trauma that extends from one generation to the next. It begins when a group experiences a traumatic event that causes economic, culture, and familial distress. In response, people belong to that group develop physical and psychological symptoms. I can't speak today. People who experience trauma may develop health conditions, anxiety, depression, heart disease, and post-traumatic stress disorder, aka PTSD. Yeah, I think all of that is super valid. Says examples of generational trauma for Black Americans. Let's see. For example, some research has found that generational trauma combats to a high risk of anxiety, depression, and high blood pressure among Black Americans. The cycle of generational trauma persists due to secular racism, which contributes to economic and health. I can't read that word. Between Black and white Americans, Holocaust survivors. So obviously that's going to release a lot of PTSD. I guess there's cases with anxiety disorder among 14% of them having depression and 7% reporting to have PTSD. Indigenous communities. Let's see. Indigenous communities have experienced generational trauma from loss of culture, land, and population. Extremely valid. Generational trauma signs and symptoms, lack of self-worth, anxiety, depression, analyzation, depression, emotional numbness, inspired life skills, critical thinking, sense of, oh my god, I can't read so many. My brain just like scrambling together at this point. And then PTSD symptoms, feeling socially isolated, having negative thoughts, and loss of interest in hobbies. Some evidence suggests that generational trauma may affect the immune system. Studies published in 2021 look at genes related to immune health among children of Holocaust survivors. The research found that some of those genes were less active than average. As a result, the participants had low immunity you were born with. So a lot of it just has to do with like, sorry, I was reading. My mind was like, what?
That's
okay. Risk factors. Everyone is susceptible to generational trauma. Events that can relate in generational trauma include adverse experiences during childhood, discrimination, natural disasters, racism, sexual abuse, and war. So I know, I guess with generational trauma, we could go back. Like my dad, he was in the Army. He had a drinking problem. My stepdad, he was in the Marines, has a drinking problem. His dad was in the Marines, had a drinking problem. I feel like that was a very big coping mechanism, and I feel like that obviously altered their brains, which made them more susceptible to certain things, or like very stuck in their ways of the habits they've already formed and they not wanting to change due to that trauma.
Yeah.
Which, again, some of it is valid, but some of it's very much like, come on. You can't be stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
I guess when it comes to like natural disasters and stuff like that, or even like man-made disasters, so like 9/11. Obviously, that's going to cause a lot of PTSD for everyone who is involved, or just people like us. I guess I never even asked how old you are, but like for me, I remember sitting in class watching the second plane land into the tower. So like that obviously triggered some stuff in me and desensitized me to a lot of things for a long time, and not realizing, like, seeing these images over and over and over and over, like, altered my brain somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even think of war. I know with my dad too, he struggled with a lot of stuff. Communication was a huge thing with him. Wow, that's actually really deep and eye-opening. But I just had that like discovery that that can be it too. But yes, I feel like everything we talked about is extremely valid.
Yeah, it just made me think because my stepdad was in the military and he likes to drink beer like water. So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I know there's different ways of coping. But again, men and mental health. Maybe there's other alternatives instead of drinking, that they could be using things for their mental health and getting the help they need with post-traumatic stress disorder. And even like with me, I was sexually abused as a child. So like there are still certain things that trigger me, but I'm still learning different coping mechanisms to help myself as well.
Yeah. I also experience similar things as well. I feel like my coping mechanism is like, I don't know if it's from trauma or if it's like, because I'm like demisexual, like on the asexual spectrum.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's like caused from the experiences I've had, because I have like a weird memory of my grandpa and friends I had that were boys that just thought they could attempt to do whatever they could because they could.
Yeah.
And then I was like 13 and I was at the roller rink, and this boy from like high school thought it was okay to try and put his hand down my pants. So I was like, it kind of became a weird thing for me.
It alters yourself.
It does. It really does. And like my mom doesn't understand why I'm 28, and she's like, she doesn't understand like why I'm not with someone yet. And I was like, it'll happen when the time is right and when someone I feel is safe.
Yes.
And I don't think she gets that. And I've tried explaining it to her many times, and she still tries to set me up with people. And I'm like, I don't know how to explain it to you any other way.
See, I feel like depending on, again, people are different. One, me having daddy issues. Two, being sexually abused. I feel like I needed male validation. So that was kind of I'm on like the opposite spectrum for you. You went like very like, since you're asexual, like that's completely different in a way. From me, I am very over sexually active, over hypersexual, and like I've always needed that. And it wasn't until recently that I realized some of these coping mechanisms that I had. I was like, what does it all stem from?
Yeah.
And I feel like, yeah, so I was like the opposite side, because I'm bisexual as well. So girls scare me though. They're just so pretty, but girls scare me. But men I feel is different, because I feel like women, you hear like women or who get more attention are very overly sexual and stuff like that. So I felt like for the
Mhm.
longest time I was that way. Luckily enough, I just found my husband when I was 16, and
Mhm.
we just kind of, he's the only person I was able to completely open up to. One,
Mhm.
I lost my virginity to him. So like then having those conversations before, like, hey, I'm very, even being hypersexual, I was, when it actually came to the act of doing things, I was very much like, be gentle,
Mhm.
tell me what you're doing. I
Yeah.
don't like being touched. Like I had to be walked through certain
Mhm.
things. And then after that, like even now today, like we have a certain relationship where we still have to have conversations because it's still very
Mhm.
triggering. I'll wake up with night terrors still, like
Mhm.
out of nowhere, that
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not, I'm not 4
Mhm.
years old anymore, but
Yeah.
I still have those flashbacks and stuff like that. So like for me, like that was something that we had to work on together. I have had
Mhm.
other relationships with men, and those relationships were completely desensitized. I was in a
Mhm.
different mental state at those times, so I was able to like do things. I was completely out of my my normal comfort zone.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, even then, certain kinds of trauma form the way you act with people. So even
Yeah.
though I am very overly sexually, every one of my friends would tell you, "Oh my God, Alex doesn't shut up about sex half the time because that's all she wants to talk about." Um,
I'm like the opposite. I'm like when that comes up in conversation, I'm like, no, don't talk about it. It makes me uncomfortable.
right, and for me, I'm more like, let's talk about it because then doing the act itself is not uncomfortable for me anymore.
Yeah, it's weird too because like I'll find like men attractive and sometimes masculine women. I don't know. I don't know. I'm still figuring out who I am. I guess.
Sexuality is a spectrum.
I'm like I don't know who I am, but I'm like I'll find them attractive and like I can have conversations and I can't really flirt. I guess I don't really know how to do that, but it's
I get
like
it.
it's like if I see one red flag, I'm like nope.
I'm
Or like it's like a switch, like I'll turn off. So I feel like my asexual, I guess my demisexuality, asexuality kind of like stems from trauma.
Yeah. So it's like
And
our trauma just like vice versa itself. So it's like
yes,
you either, I mean, you can probably go more than one, like two ways, but like for us, our trauma was similar, but still we ended up on different spectrums.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. That human body and brain is amazing like that.
It really is. Yes.
Because, yeah, but even like with girls, I'm just like, I can't talk to girls. And if I do, I immediately friend zone them. I was like, no, we're just friends. No, we're just friends. I can't flirt with you. I flirt with everyone, though.
That Pisces energy. I had this guy I used to work with, and I thought he was so pretty, and he was a Pisces, and I was like, "You're a male Pisces, though. You have issues." I don't know about that one.
Even Lana or even Chaperone fell for a Pisces. It's okay. My new favorite song has been Naked in Manhattan. So I'm like, I know that whole things, and she's like, Pisces. And I was like, yes, you're speaking to me. Chapel is like my dream girl. She's a redhead. She's just like everything I want in a woman. I was like, yes, Chapel. Yes. You're singing the song to me. Anyway, we're getting off
We really
Oh, that happens a lot. You know how often I have to edit these podcasts?
like ADHD is a superpower, I promise.
Yes. But all right. Well, I hope that explains some about trauma. It was a little bit of everywhere, just all different kinds of trauma.
Yeah, we find comedy as a way to help us express ourselves, even though we're in a lot of pain. Everything's
Uh, my trauma makes me funny. I
me
mean,
too. Yes, it's a good coping mechanism for me. That's where it
yes,
comes from.
yes.
I'm masking all the time. It's great.
No, same. Same with like my social battery. Really, in
Mm-hmm.
reality, my social battery is literally. So when I get done, once this is done, I'm not gonna do anything besides scroll on TikTok the rest of the
I'm gonna go
night.
have a snack and probably watch a movie and get cuddly in a blankie. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yep. Yep. No, my social battery is about empty. So I get that.
Yeah.
But alrighty. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I truly
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on it.
Yeah.
Good.
If you're down for coming back sometime, if you have anything else, just totally reach out. I'd love to have you on again.
Sure.
Um, So, for our listeners, if you want to share your story, or if you have anything you would like to discuss, or if you think someone else should share their story, you can reach out to us or reach out to me at sorryfortraumadumpingpodcast@gmail.com. It's really long, but you won't forget it. You can listen on Spotify and YouTube. We also have TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. So go ahead and follow us and like our stuff on there. Um, and that will wrap up this episode. So we will see you next time.
Yay.
Bye.